And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases. MotleyRice.com. Driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Get your next ride today at Stokes Volkswagen as they're starting to close out the year here. Take a drive to North Charleston and check them out. Find them again online at StokesVW.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. It's free. Download that. Have it in your phone. Pop us up whenever you need us. You can find all of our available platforms there, as well as a high school football score stream and things of that nature. You can always head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. Across all social media, at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. Share Healthcare chat lines are open and active already. You can be a part of our program by jumping in, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you are. Post a comment. Darren will post it on our show, and we will discuss it throughout the next couple of hours. ShareHealthcare.com for more affordable, user-friendly healthcare options. ShareHealthcare.com. Wes Mitchell at 12:30, Perry Orth at 1:05, Gene Sapakoff at 1:35. It's a full boat on a Monday, and there's plenty to discuss, obviously, including South Carolina this weekend, losing at Missouri. Plenty on that game today. The rest of the SEC, it was a wild weekend in that league. Across the country, more wild college football stuff happening. Oklahoma is all but out of the college football playoff amongst those topics. Clemson, they dominate UConn. They got Wake coming up this weekend. Wake can win the Atlantic Coast Conference Atlantic Division by beating the Tigers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. We do have a bunch of hoops as well. We got some high school football that we're going to mix in. The NFL, how about the Panthers going out west and dominating Arizona? Who the hell saw that coming? So it's a pretty wild day around here. But first and foremost, good afternoon, Darren Goldwater.
Cam Newton, man. I mean, remember him, right? He gets into the end zone. There's the helmet off, and it's about Cam Newton. I'm back. Anyway, I know a lot of you are having a bad day. So I have a worse day for you. Read about this morning, and trust me, your day is not as bad as this. 3 have been killed. At least 400 have been injured from scorpion stings because of thunderstorms in a town in Egypt. They have closed schools, they have closed roads, and are limiting transportation because of scorpion stings.
Holy moly.
Sorry, the football team lost.
I didn't realize that scorpions were that prevalent in Egypt, but
who knew?
Okay. How many are dead? 3?
3 dead, at least 400 injured from scorpions.
What pandemic, right? Holy moly.
That sounds unfortunate.
Yeah. All right. Well, our best go out to those in Egypt, and we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers. Yeah. Well, yeah. Look for South Carolina. By the way, any of you maybe that missed it, the Gamecocks and the Tigers are going to kick off at 7:30 next Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium. So by my count, that's 5 of 7 home games this year at night at Williams-Brice. That'll be on the SEC network. The rest of the slate that day in the SEC is Florida State at noon, Georgia at Georgia Tech at noon. That's on ABC. That Florida FSU game is on ESPN, 3:30. The Iron Bowl on CBS from Auburn, who, of course, comes to Columbia this weekend. Tennessee and Vandy at 3:45 in Knoxville, and then A&M LSU at 7 o'clock on ESPN that night from Baton Rouge. Kentucky, Louisville have not seen a network designation on that just yet, but that's in an ACC ballpark, so we'll keep our eyes on that. But the next two Saturday nights at Williams-Brice are going to provide opportunity for South Carolina to beat some Tigers, get to a bowl, or get to a better bowl. But the way that they played this past Saturday in Columbia, Missouri, they play like that again, they ain't going bowling. It was much more of the same from South Carolina in that loss against Mizzou. It was, you thought you maybe turned the corner. We all saw the problems that Florida had on Saturday against Samford. Of course, had Florida come to Columbia and beaten South Carolina, they might have been a little bit more motivated going into the game, but that's neither here nor there. Florida's got issues at the end of the day, and South Carolina had hidden theirs for a weekend, and then they popped back up on Saturday, Darren, in Columbia. First thing you got to do is give credit to Missouri for getting up off the mat and beating the Gamecocks. But, South Carolina only has the mirror to look in. They literally made no adjustments throughout the game. They had 250 yards of offense because worst defense in the league, 122nd worst defense in the country. I mean, all the bad notes that you need are there. And here they are at 5-5, 2-5 in the SEC. There will be a losing record in the league this year, no matter what happens against Auburn, Darren. But it was another loss for South Carolina, and it's back to the drawing board. And I'll say this. I was actually talking to somebody who called me about this a little while ago, and they said, did Shane seem more like visibly frustrated in this game than at any other game this year? And I said, yeah, he did. And I think that was not just at the offensive coordinator. I think it was at a lot of people, because there's a lot of dudes that didn't do their jobs Saturday in Columbia, Missouri.
It was disappointing, I'm sure, as a South Carolina fan, right? Because there's so much positivity. You felt that there was some momentum, and a lot of that, right? I mean, rightfully so. Last week on this show, from Shane Beamer's mouth, a lot of it was last week was about South Carolina, and that is the stance, that is the position that should be taken, because it is a team that needed to be focused like that and say, look, this was us. This was progress in our locker room, on our field, and now let's continue to make this about us. With an extra week to look back on it, it was as much about Florida. I mean, right? We touched on it. We touched on it. It was as much about them, and I'm not in that locker room. I don't want to say it inflated the confidence, but certainly the team that we saw against Florida, that they were an enhanced version of themselves. This is much more the team that we've seen all throughout the year, a team that's had to play with three different quarterbacks, and won, by the way. I do like that nugget that they've won with three different quarterbacks this year. But this is the team. This is the team we've seen all year long, and the issues up front were back. The reason Jason Brown hadn't been able to crack the lineup, he's not Superman. He played like it for a week. He looked otherworldly last week. He's probably somewhere in between these two. So it wasn't on him. It wasn't just him in any shape or form, but there was some comeback down to the team is probably closer to this Missouri version and maybe somewhere in the middle, but certainly not that Florida version.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, look, for all of those who always call for the next quarterback, well, they've exhausted all options. So, okay, this should be crystal clear to fans that think that quarterback is the primary problem. Yeah, it's not. I mean, this is a root problem right now at South Carolina, and it's the offense is what it is. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback. We've been trying to say that for a month. I mean, I think some people out there get it, others don't. Maybe they do now. But I mean, again, there were literally no adjustments made on the offensive side of the football for South Carolina. The game plan seemed okay to start. I mean, they shot themselves in the foot with the fumble, had a chance to go up at least 10-0, if not 14-0. That would have not guaranteed a victory. It would have definitely given them momentum. And who knows, maybe it would have changed the way that Missouri was playing a little bit from there on out, but at least their approach defensively, I don't know. I have no idea if it would or wouldn't have. But But you got to be able to overcome that. Like, you can't, a turnover in the first quarter should not dictate the outcome of the game, especially when you're already up 7-0, you know? And South Carolina's defense didn't do themselves any favors by not being able to stop Tyler Beatty. And I'll kind of sum this up. I mean, guys, Carolina got outcoached. And here's why. Let me give you one pretty easy line. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because they gave the ball, Missouri, to their best player 39 times. That's why. And he beat him. Tyler Beatty single-handedly beat him. Missouri tried to cough it up as well, give the game back to South Carolina. But you know what? That dude single-handedly beat the Gamecocks. And Eli Drinkwitz and that Missouri offense had a good game plan to consistently get him the football and let him go to work. And on the flip side of that, you know, I didn't see Zaquandre White touch the ball for like almost 2 quarters. And I'm sitting here thinking, haven't we already been down this road? The guy didn't get a touch for 3 games, and since he's been consistently playing again, he's been lightning quick, and he's been the spark that you want. And he ended up getting some carries. By the way, 10 carries, 60 yards, another 6+ yards a carry. So, I mean, South Carolina just didn't have a good offensive game plan. They say they did publicly, but they didn't because they couldn't stop anybody. Missouri was pinning their ears back and coming to get them, and nobody could slow that down. There were no screens. When you just pin your ears back and you just haul tail towards the quarterback, a screen can generally keep that honest. They didn't do that. And they literally had no designs to make sure that their best players consistently had the football. Missouri did. So I give them all the credit in the world. Missouri deserved to win the football game based on that alone. Congratulations to the Tigers. They get to keep the Mayor's Cup in Columbia, Mizzou for another year.
It's hard to see what the game plan was. If you can't run the ball at all, and if your quarterback's getting killed every time he drops back, and if your defense is getting gashed because you lost sight of a short running back who you've been watching film on all week long and we're well aware of his size, there's no game plan that's going to beat that. If you're just going to get gashed for 280 yards on the ground, and if you can't run the ball at all and your quarterback has no time, it doesn't matter what you're calling. It doesn't. I don't know if it's schematically up front. I don't know why there was miscommunication. Jason Brown called it out. Shane Beamer said it was really disappointing. Brown took some of it upon himself. Others, it was the offensive line. I don't know. But whatever communication issues were not there last week, were back again this week. Why? That and I'm not the one who can answer that question. It's an easy question to ask. Why? How even against, look, the offensive line played better against Florida than they did against Eastern Illinois. So this it doesn't really matter that this was Missouri, that this was Florida. This was, again, a step back. Why? You want to keep seeing progress, and that's not what's happening. This isn't one guy. This isn't Satterfield. This is a top to bottom thing, and a question that I'm sure everyone in that locker room is trying to answer, and maybe someone can put their finger on.
Yeah, it is baffling. I do want to go to the Share Healthcare chat lines here and try to include some of these comments into our discussion. Will, another letdown after a big win. Same story last 5+ years. I mean, you're not wrong there. Unfortunately, 1 step forward, 2 steps back for South Carolina. Steven says, want to beat the Gamecocks. Just blitz. Certainly appears that way. Craig chimed in, 13 QB pressures. It felt like 130.
It did.
But that's the number. All right. Craig also says Turntine totally whiffed on that handoff exchange that led to the fumble, which was Marshawn Lloyd's. His guy almost took the snap. Steven, JB 100%. I'm assuming you're probably talking about the Beatty comment I made there. If so. Will said, no identity. Who's the Gamecocks' best player? Well, we got Wes Mitchell coming up in 15 minutes. And it's funny you asked that question because do you remember about a month ago, Darren, when I asked that question and there were some people that were chuckling at me? Well, I think we know who are they? I mean, I think the best players for South Carolina are Zaquandre White, Jaheim Bell, and Josh Vann. Those would be my picks. And if that's the case, let's see here. Jaheim Bell, 2 catches. Josh, 5. Zaquandre White, 10 carries. That's 17. Zaquandre had 2 receptions. Okay. So that's 19 times that your three best players touch football. Yeah, that's not enough, especially when one of them's a running back. I mean, we could go on and on. Beamer did say something yesterday he's totally spot on about. I mean, the offensive line was bad, but Jason Brown, I mean, everybody saw it, right? The spin left and let me try to make something happen like he did in the Florida game. At some point in time, you actually have to understand how to step up into the pocket and throw it. And don't misunderstand what I'm about to say here for being I know it all, I told you so. But I hate to kind of say this, I kind of told you so. I mean, the sources that I rely on, which are pretty good ones, from day one with Jason Brown, had said it has nothing to do, and we talked about this, with ability. From an athleticism standpoint, this young man he's got it. From a kid, what type of kid is he? He's a great kid. Does he have a chance to make some big plays? Absolutely. He's done that. But what happens in between those is pretty impactful in the wrong direction. Just kind of bonehead moments here and there, or not knowing when to not take a 13, 14-yard sack instead of just stepping up and getting rid of that sucker. Those things are what hinder you from playing. So, a lot of times these coaches have to go forward with the path of least resistance, and although Zeb Nolan and an injured Luke Doty might have not been option A at all times, they were the path of least resistance off a lot. And that's why Jason Brown wasn't playing a whole bunch, but they kind of got to a point where, number one, he had to play.
Yep.
And now, number two, with some of the other issues they have, Darren, you're kind of having to live with it. And they were able to minimize a lot of that last week against Florida by sticking with a game plan and continuing to perfect and do the things well that they were doing well. And they abandoned a lot of that in this game. I have no idea why they did not get bullheaded and boneheaded about running the football earlier in the I don't know. I just don't have that answer, but people have a right to be pissed. They probably should be.
You've given out the numbers often about how bad Missouri's defense has been. A, overall, B, stopping the run. And there was not a concerted effort to go right at it. Maybe this was early on in the game. The coach just said, this is who we are again. Here, it's happening again. Let's just give up now. I don't know. But the question of who the Gamecocks' best player is, that has become like a theme on this show now. I mean, I guess going back about a month when you just said that's when the first time you asked the question. But look, if you go around the country to other teams, not even great teams, good teams, average teams, almost any team, you have a good idea who the best players are. And those best players are regularly talked about in getting the ball, and their game plan is to try and get them the ball. It is a legitimate question right now who the Gamecocks' best player is, who the staff thinks their best player is, and how they can get them the ball more, and why they're not getting the ball more. Those are all very legitimate questions, and that's a problem that those are legitimate questions.
It is, and the messages are strange that are sent because back to the Share Healthcare chat lines here. You can sharehealthcare.com to take care of your family. RB asks, how many touches did Juju have? As far as I know, the answer is 0. But the week prior, they felt good enough to put him in the game in a Wildcat situation on the goal line against Florida, which I was fine with that. I wasn't at first until I realized what they were doing there, putting Zaquandre White, who would literally run them down to the 4 or 5 yard line. They put him in there as a sweep guy and let Juju make a decision. I'm fine with that. He's been a playmaker all year, and they're keying on Zaquandre White and maybe getting the football. At the minimum, you're creating some type of decision there for the defense to make. So I totally cool with that. But if you feel like he's a guy who's good enough to play there, he's not good enough to get a touch this week against Missouri. It just doesn't. They don't. A lot of what we see and what we think just doesn't equate. And so they are where they are. It's been a frustrating year. This football team, Darren, as I look at the schedule, could be 7-3 with wins over Missouri and Kentucky, and that's what people look at most. That's why they're most frustrated. That being said, they also could be 2-8. Mm-hmm. with losses to ECU and Troy and Vanderbilt in there. So you know what that tells me? They are probably about where they should be at 5-5. That's what it now. It sucks to watch how they've gotten there. And if you ask me today, who has a more talented football team, Missouri or South Carolina? South Carolina. I will never give in to that. I think they have a more talented football team than Missouri. Missouri had a better game plan. They outcoached them. They outplayed them. They deserve to win the game. They won it. And Carolina's got to come home where they have played much better all year. And they've got Auburn and Clemson coming in. And guess what, boys and girls, 6-6 still get you bowling if you can win one of the next two. And as frustrated as some people will be, they'll also look at it, they at least should objectively, and say, my God, this team won six games.
The line from last week doesn't change. That, okay, you're going to have 5 wins with 3 games remaining. And I mean, if you had that in the palm of your hand with 3 games remaining, one of them against Missouri at the beginning of the year, you'd have taken it and run with that. And you still had it. And now you still have 5 wins with a banged up Auburn team coming in. Bo Nix isn't going to play. Their kicker's not going to play. Right. Okay. The chance is still in front of you. It's still there. So it is frustrating how it's gotten there. It's been very consistent how it's gotten there, with the lone exception of that Florida game. So there is a level of frustration there. But if you take this whole season in one lump sum, if you get to the end of this season, you take it in one lump sum, and it's a 6-win year, and it's a bowl game, and it's more practice for Beamer and this staff, more so them than for the players, actually, more time for these guys to, I don't know, continue to learn on the job. Let's put it that way. Then that's a good thing. The year is a success at that point. So it's frustrating. I do get that. I do agree with you that Carolina's a more talented team. I think the most talented player on the field was pretty evident, and that was Beatty. But
yeah,
but overall, top to bottom, probably a more talented team. Yeah, Carolina. And the goals are still there. It's just frustrating to watch how it happens, because to me, again, an outsider, right? The emotional letdown is what's been so killer of this positive offseason, all these good thoughts, and we got our guy. We love the positivity. You know, Gamecock Twitter is even positive, to then watching the demise of the year, to then this huge high of, oh my God, now we can go win our last 3 games, and then bam, fall again at Missouri. It's just like, it's tough to be a Gamecock fan.
Right now, it certainly is. It is, it's something. It just is what it is. And again, we got Wes and Perry coming up on more of this. Gene Sapakoff certainly will chime in as well. If you are watching, you can see on the screen there, Auburn is a 7-point favorite this week. TJ Finley is going to start for the Tigers. He beat Carolina last year as the backup quarterback at LSU. So he's used to seeing South Carolina, but he saw him last year in the friendly confines of Baton Rouge, Death Valley, when Carolina kind of limped into town. So we'll see what he looks like under the lights of Williams-Brice this week. Again, Carolina's been winning games at home this year. You know, with the exception of Kentucky, they've won games at home. And these next 2, you could still change a lot of narratives and change a lot of stuff. You just got to ride some mo into the offseason to keep heading in the right direction. Also on the Share Healthcare chat lines, before I get to the rest of the scoreboard here, though, Darren from Craig. And Craig, I totally agree with you. I don't know how else you can say this, but Jenkins had 1 touch. What a waste of his size. And I would add talent. This kid is pretty good. And I'm sitting here watching the game Saturday. I look at it was somebody who was sitting with me, and I said, dude, look at this. I don't know how tall the cat is that's covering him. I'm guessing he's probably 5'10"-ish, but Jenkins has about a foot on him. Just lob it up there. Just see what happens once. Just lob it up. Let's just call a fade here. Just see what happens. Come on. He's got a foot. That'd be like me. That'd be like me going to the playground against a 5th grader and someone saying, here's the basketball, go play. And, I just push him aside and just keep laying it in. All right. On the scoreboard from the weekend around the SEC and around the country before we hit a timeout here, Georgia. I don't know who mentioned this Friday. Maybe it was you or JC, but somebody said probably a slow start for him up there in Athens, and then they'll kick it into gear. They did. 41-17 Georgia, 8-0 in the league. Nothing has been close. Georgia is the heavy favorite to win the SEC and probably still win the national championship. But they turned it on. I mean, it was some kind of something after that first quarter. 10-0 are the Dogs moving ahead. Tennessee, though, coming up, they've got I can't remember who they have this weekend. Then they got Vanderbilt. They should be 7-5, finish the year 4-4 in the league. What a job by Josh Heupel. Bama pounded New Mexico State, so they covered that 51.5. Wow, 59-3. Ole Miss, this was, I thought, a stunner, and not necessarily because of the scoreboard, but because of the score. 29-19. The Ole Miss defense played really well. Lane Kiffin has the Rebels at 8-2. Boys and girls.
Ran for 257 yards. It was not just the Matt Corral show. They ran for 257 yards against A&M.
Yeah, it was wow. It was impressive. Jerrion Ely was really good too. He had over 150 himself. Arkansas over LSU in OT, 16-13. That drops the Tigers 4-6. They got to win out to get to a bowl game, which at this point in time looks unlikely. But the Razorbacks are 7-3. Sam Pittman continues to impress. Florida, whatever, man. 70-52. It was one of the more baffling things I've ever seen in the Southeastern Conference. An SEC team giving up 42 points and a half, let alone 42 points and a half against an FCS program.
Most points an SEC team, if you're watching, you can see this. Most points an SEC team's ever given up to an FCS team.
That was embarrassing. Like, that was really embarrassing. And you could tell they were going through the motions. They did not want to be there.
The reaction afterwards was worse. Worse. I mean, you're dancing in the locker room. You got Dan Mullen criticizing reporters. Like, look, it's not going to end well this year. It's just not.
They got problems, Darren. It's pretty dangerous down there. Emory Jones was also dangerous, though. He threw 464 and 6 touchdowns. Kentucky over Vanderbilt 34-17. But all that being said, there is no chance in hell that the top storyline should not be the fact that Mississippi State scored 40 unanswered points against Auburn. 40. They were down 28-3, and they won the game 43-34. The Pirate and Lane Kiffin have set up an awesome Thanksgiving night for us because the Egg Bowl is back on Thanksgiving this year. Mississippi State is 6-4, 4-3. Ole Miss is 8-2, 4-2. Mississippi State has Tennessee State coming up this weekend. They're not, knock on wood, right, going to lose that game. Ole Miss has Vanderbilt coming up this weekend. So you're going to have a 9-2 Ole Miss and a 7-4 Mississippi State team playing on Thanksgiving night in Starkville, Mississippi. So this is going to be neat. These guys, there's some special coaching jobs out there, and I know the Bo Nix injury, but Bo Nix didn't give up 40 straight points.
Nope.
The Auburn defense did, and that was embarrassing for Auburn. Of course, they got South Carolina next up, so they have every chance to right their wrongs as the Gamecocks continue to prove. But Georgia has sewed up the East, as we know, at 8-0. And out West, if Bama wins coming up this weekend, they will officially win the West. But it's a tough one. 25th ranked Arkansas will be in T-Town on CBS on Saturday, part of our Post-Up Careers Week 12 college football resume. That is one of 2 SEC games that have some type of merit behind them. The other, of course, is Auburn and the Gamecocks at 7 o'clock on ESPN at Williams-Brice. And that is where we're going to turn our attention next with Wes Mitchell from Gamecock Central. Remember, Mike Bobo will make his return to the sidelines of Williams-Brice Stadium Saturday evening. We'll talk about that. Also, of course, the performance in Columbia, Missouri, and the rest of the matchup between the Tigers and Carolina. Right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need need the perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater show and the Big Gamecock Preview show.
Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, 12:32 Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Waiting on Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central to pop in here in just a moment, which is a little unusual. Maybe we should check on Wes and make sure that he's doing okay up there. But it's when he checks in, we'll get to South Carolina. I do see a really interesting question there, RB, that I want to get to here in just a moment. But before we do, a quick glance at the rest of the scoreboard from across the country. In college football, since we didn't get to it. The Oregon over Washington State. Oregon's looking pretty good to stay in the top 4 when the rankings re-release tomorrow evening. But guys, there is nothing in college football right now that is more intriguing than what's happening in the Big Ten East. I mean, this is just fascinating. I thought Ohio State would pound Purdue. Mm-hmm. The only reason I thought that was because all week long, the cute nickname had come up with the spoiler makers, and that's gold for Ohio State. You talk up their opponent all week long, especially an underdog already who's just looking to upset them. Ohio State doesn't put up with that, and they didn't. They beat them 59-31. So Ohio State is looking really good to get into the college football playoff as well. And
probably
then
their best game. I mean, that was their most complete game, and it comes at a good time with a huge last 2 games coming up for them.
No question, man. Absolutely. Michigan, Penn State, that one was really ugly.
Yep.
But Michigan somehow won 21-17. So they're in it. They're still in the thick of it, guys. You remember, Ohio State's got Michigan State and Michigan to finish the year. So whoever wins this is going to have earned it.
Yep.
They're all 6-1 in the league. Michigan State beat Maryland. That's who Michigan has this coming weekend. Baylor over Oklahoma. I picked that. I thought that would kind of happen too. Darren, Baylor looks pretty good under Dave Aranda. I might be a little surprised if LSU isn't seriously considering him for their job. What are they doing? This guy is a good football coach, and he knows the landscape down there.
He is. He does. They could end up with him, but my guess is they're shooting for a more splashy name. Speaking of splashy names, I haven't heard James Franklin's name being tossed around there very often. I'll leave that there.
Yeah, it's simmered a little bit.
Yeah.
Notre Dame went to Charlottesville, took care of Virginia big 28-3. Oklahoma State piled it on TCU. Oklahoma State's 9-1. Wake Forest, NC State. So now Wake, of course, has the leg up in winning that division. They got Clemson coming up this weekend. They can sew it up, man, if they take care of the Tigers in Death Valley. Wisconsin big over Northwestern. Iowa over Minnesota this weekend. They're at 8-2. And then San Diego State, UTSA, Utah, all ranked 22, 23, 24. They all take care of business. So that's your glance around the top 25. All right, Wes Mitchell joins us here with Gamecock Central, 12:36 on a Monday afternoon. Wes, before I pop you in, RB's got something in the Share Healthcare chat lines that I want to get to. And his question is, does a 6th win guarantee no staff changes? If so, I'm not sure it's worth it. I won't go that far with the rest of it. But does a 6th win guarantee no staff changes? Absolutely not. There are never guarantees as to whether staff changes are made or not. You got to remember, guys leave on their own accord sometimes for better jobs. Yes, guys get fired. You work out little deals behind the scenes. I mean, there's always something turning in every staff in America. It's so rare that every coach is back on every staff every year. So no, a 6th win, 7th win, 8th win, any of that, that's not going to guarantee that Coach Beamer doesn't make a change if he feels like a change is necessary with Gamecock football. But they did change this weekend, Wes, because last week they played pretty well, and then this weekend they didn't, which means they lost up there in Columbia, Missouri. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. Yeah, like you said, tough game for South Carolina. I think we all knew, we all said it, man. Can you deal with success? Shane Beamer, after the game, he sort of said it. He was like, look, this team, just did not execute as it needed to in really at times all 3 phases of the game. You wondered what would the reaction be to sort of the positive headlines for a full week and dealing with that. Very winnable game, a game that, South Carolina let several things go against them that obviously led to the loss.
So when he says this team didn't execute, does that mean the players? Does that mean the coaches? Does that mean all included?
That's all included. I mean, I'll give Beamer credit. He took all the initial blame, for what happened. So I think, as always, it's going to be a combination of things. It was once again a combination of things on Saturday for South Carolina. They looked, obviously, at times there were flashes of what we saw against Florida. At times they looked like, the offense for stretches that we've seen for, frankly, for most of the season. I think, you look at the first half, there were stretches where they were playing pretty well on offense. Then you would look maybe for most of the third quarter, though, it was a situation where they really just could not get anything going on offense. And then, as much as we've talked about the defense and them sort of outplaying the expectations this year, we have seen them struggle to stop the run for large portions of this season. And that was the case on Saturday. Clearly, there were too many times where, there's a missed tackle allowing a sort of short or intermediate run to become a bigger run. It doesn't go down as a run, but the big sort of jet sweep pop pass play at the end of the half was absolutely brutal when you consider that you would have gone into the half tied and you had the ball at about past the 50-yard line, actually, prior to a holding call going in. You never feel like if you have the ball with between 2 and 3 minutes left in the half, either you should score or nobody should score. You never want to give up points to your opponent when you have the ball in that situation. But South Carolina kind of shot itself in the foot, gave the ball back to Missouri, They get the last second field goal at the half, which you almost had a feeling at the time. You're like, man, that could come back and haunt them. Obviously, turnovers were a huge story in the game for both sides, but clearly was the difference for the Gamecocks.
Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central, 12:40 on this Monday afternoon. Yeah, I mean, Wes, I thought what Missouri did was game plan to give the football to their best player as much as they could, and let's see what happens. And we saw what happened. I mean, they gave the ball to Tyler Beatty 40 times, basically. I think he had 5 catches out of the backfield. We know he ran it for 34 yards. He had a huge game on the ground. Yeah, Carol, in addition to the fact that South Carolina has struggled to stop the run this year, Missouri also did everything they could to give this guy some space to move. And so you got to give them credit there. On the flip side, you know, you remember we were just talking about this a little while ago. Wes, you remember about a month ago when I asked you, it's kind of a silly question, but we kind of laughed because we didn't know who were South Carolina's best players. And I personally feel today that Carolina's 3 best players are right now Zaquandre White, Jaheim Bell, and Josh Vann. That's just my preference of guys. But
3 best players on offense.
On offense, yeah, that's what I meant. But they had the 19 total touches in the game. And there was a stretch there where Zaquandre White wasn't even getting a look. I just don't understand what happens. Like how you put these guys on the field and they don't get the ball. And, yeah, Missouri's doing some things on defense, but you didn't do anything to try to help out. What was the game plan, I guess, is the question I'm asking. Could you tell?
Yeah, I mean, well, the game plan was not for it to play out the way it did. I can tell you that. I think it was a very I mean, in all seriousness, when that's the difference between when you can run the football successfully like they did last week and you're sitting there in 2nd and 3s and 3rd and 2s and stuff like that versus dropping back, having to throw. And, it was once again one of those things. I mean, we could talk for 2 hours on the whys and the what exactly happened as far as the game plan, the offense, and why there were mistakes. I think some of it was Missouri did a good job of taking that Jason Brown tape and adjusting to what they saw from him against Florida. And we actually just talked to Jason Brown on our live stream a second ago, and he mentioned that very thing, that looking back, like Missouri had scouted his spin move to the back, and they were sort of rushing upfield, accounting for the fact that he was going to do that. And so I think obviously the offensive line wasn't as good as it was the week before, but I don't personally believe this was all on the offensive line. I think Missouri is you playing NCAA football on PS3 back in the day, and everything's going wrong on defense, and you just hit the 2 blitzers up the middle, and you just say, I don't care if I get beat, I'm sending the house. Missouri was basically like, Engage 8, where you just send everybody on there. I mean, there were several times where, they're just going 0 blitz, I think, and there's nobody deep, but they don't care because they felt like they could get there, and they did. I think it just, to me, it went back to being, I'll say sloppy. That's the word for me. I mean, if you just aren't able to consistently execute on offense, then you see the result is that you have these negative plays. You're not getting lined up correctly that cost you 5 yards when it should have been 3rd and 1, and you were going to pick up the first down, but they called you that a receiver didn't get lined up. So you get dropped back to now you're 3rd and 6, and you have an incomplete. Now you're 4th and 6. You go for it. You don't get it. So holding calls on positive runs. It brings back a play where Z White gets a gain into Missouri territory. It backs it up a ton. So to me, I don't know. It's not necessarily, if I look at it, it's not all play calling. It's some play calling. It's not all play calling. Some of it is, I feel like, again, like we talked about all year long, you're doing so much offensively that the details tend to get lost with the guys. And that's when you have mistakes like that, is when you have a lack of attention to detail.
So, you got 2 games to finish the season, right? They're both at night. One of them's your arch rival. One of them employs a guy who up and left your football program, and Mike Bobo. Before the Florida game, Wes, you had 2 weeks to prepare for that ball game. Florida's had their issues. As more comes out in the wash, I think there's a lot of folks who are starting to maybe give more credit to things other than the fact that South Carolina maybe had gotten better or figured out who they are and discovered themselves and things of that nature. I think people are looking at that Florida win saying, well, Florida clearly ain't any good. Look what they just had to do to beat Samford. Carolina had all this time. Florida had a player hurt dancing. They all had the flu. People are just giving more credence to other things. So what do you think we should expect with all that being said? I mean, they're like, my plea to the fans is you only get to watch this 12, maybe 13 times a year. If you're Georgia or Alabama, 15 times a year. And you only get to go to 7 of them. So it's going to be cold, but get liquored up, grab a jacket and go to the game. But what should people reasonably expect the next couple of weeks after this roller coaster ride they've been through over the last few?
Yeah, I will say this. I don't know that Auburn's necessarily a great football team. Auburn opened as a 10-point favorite. Bo Nix is out. That line has dropped considerably already. Clemson is as beatable as they've been for South Carolina in a long time. So if South Carolina, so here's the thing. To me, it's kind of like when Austin Riley comes up and he destroys teams for a little while, and then all the pitchers adjust to him, and then he struggles. Now, it's in a much shorter time period, but Jason Brown makes his first start, and the offense looks a little bit different, and you're doing some different things, and it's all working. And now, hey, the tape's out, and now teams are going to adjust to you. Now you have to adjust back. I still think there are some things we can take away from that Florida game that I believe South Carolina will be able to benefit from moving forward. Is the offense going to be as good as it was in that game? Because Florida, it seems like, has frankly quit. Dan Mullen may be out. Probably not, but I do think it's not as good as it looked against Florida. Probably not quite as bad as it looked against Missouri. These are 2, I believe, pretty beatable teams at home if South Carolina can eliminate some of the mistakes from this last week. Now, let's be completely honest, y'all. We've seen some bad offense this year, so there's no guarantees of that. But I do think at home, at night, with the crowd involved, you got to get yourself in one of those games where the crowd can stay involved and it can sort of snowball. That's what happened to Florida. South Carolina played well early on. Then they got the big turnover, and at that point, the game was pretty much over. When Jabari Ellis scored, it had gotten away from Florida. So you've got to just if you're a fan, again, the cold is a lame excuse. Nobody's forcing you to go to the game, but to me, the cold is not. That's not a worthy excuse.
I mean, it's South Carolina. This isn't Happy Valley.
It's not that cold.
Or Ann Arbor.
Like, a jacket, it'll be fine. A jacket and jeans, you'll be good.
I've sat through a lot of cold games. That doesn't bother me at all. Football is football. You look at Auburn, Wes, and they're coming in on a 2-game losing streak after winning 2 huge games, beating Arkansas, beating Ole Miss. So, and now they got TJ Finley, who's going to get the start for the Tigers this week. He beat South Carolina last year when he was in an LSU uniform. The guy that he beat was the offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, who's now coordinating him at Auburn. It's funny how the world turns in the SEC. What a drama this is, right? There's some major storylines here, and there is familiarity, just in a weird sense for the Gamecocks, and seeing Finley and seeing Bobo in different roles in which they were just literally 365 days ago on the calendar. I don't know that any of he's going to be asked about it tomorrow, Wes. I'm not sure who will ask him, but somebody's going to ask Shane Beamer about Mike Bobo. We all know that's going to come up. But and I don't know that any of this is going to be public. Shane's probably going to say the nicest things he possibly can. But do you think maybe behind closed doors, there's kind of a he left you because you're not good enough for him type message to this football team, especially the offense, maybe as a little extra nudge this week?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be said behind closed doors, like if it's going to actually be verbalized, but I would imagine there's a little extra juice on the South Carolina side this time. I expect, like you said, in the press conference tomorrow, Beamer's going to sidestep this like Jaheim Bell in the open field. I think like he ain't touching he ain't touching that. That there's nothing to gain from touching that. But I think, is there in the building going to be a little extra juice? I would say probably so. I mean, Bobo leaves after it appears that he's going to stay. He's offered the opportunity to stay. He leaves for another SEC job, and it's a team you play. Yeah, it matters, in my opinion, even if no one ever admits that. They probably won't admit it, but I do think it matters.
I'll say this, Wes, and I wasn't in this conversation, so this is not quote unquote reporting, but I've got it on pretty good accord that one of the reasons Mike Bobo left, it was verbalized that Auburn just had better players, and in particular a better quarterback room. And again, I can't prove that, so if somebody posts this on the Gamecock Central message board, and I can't prove that, but a pretty good source has told me that a couple of times over the last couple of months. And if that's true, that to me would be inspiration enough for your football team. And you know what? For Marcus Satterfield, I mean, the guy is not had a really good year as an OC, except for the Florida game and a couple of other moments here or there. Like this, he could make this personal. And you don't have to publicize that, but internally, I don't know that hurts either.
No, it doesn't. And, I think this is one of those games where you ought to be motivated enough anyway, regardless, but certainly there's a little extra motivation there. And there probably should be some extra motivation from the Auburn side, because you probably feel like South Carolina shouldn't have beaten you last year either. And South Carolina, really, that was
no doubt
the best moment by far of South Carolina's season last year was beating Auburn at home. And at the time, it felt like it might really mean something, that this is an opportunity for them to turn their season around. So for Auburn, there's a little bit of added juice from that standpoint. If I'm the South Carolina defense, I'm saying I'm not letting this Finley guy lead an offense up and down the field against me like they did, at LSU. There's so many. I mean, it's like the transfer portal has just changed storylines, I feel like, in games as well, because you have these just weird connections of guys. And to me, I guarantee you this, South Carolina may get beat Saturday and Auburn may run the football on them Saturday, but they're not going to just sit back and sit on their heels and let Auburn run the football up and down the field on them like they did last year, or like LSU did with Finley in his first career start last year, I should say.
Yeah, I think this game has the capability of getting chippy, Wes, and you want to make sure that you're not really that good. So you can't 15-yard penalties aren't going to help you. So don't be stupid out there. In the Finley situation, he was pretty good against Carolina, but I tell you what, it's going to be hard for Auburn not to just watch the tape and go, well, wait a second. That Beatty kid's pretty good, but this Tank guy who almost committed to South Carolina, he's pretty good too. So he's just going to get the ball a lot, and Carolina's going to have to prove they can stop it.
Yeah, he'll get the ball, and Carolina actually bottled him up fairly well last year against Auburn. Surprisingly, to me, he's easily one of the best backs that this league has, and South Carolina, obviously would have loved to have him. They, depending on who you ask, had a verbal silent commit from him at one point. So he was very nearly a Gamecock, and obviously that didn't follow through. But for this to be two teams, guys, that aren't really rivals at all, there are a ton of little just underlying storylines that are sort of weaved throughout this matchup.
This I call it a series, even though it's not much of one, because until last year, Carolina had never beaten Auburn. But, I was at the 2010 game, Wes. South Carolina should have won that. on the Plains. Garcia throws 2 picks. They bring in Connor. He fumbles twice after the winning by they had a nice lead in the fourth quarter, and then they screwed that one into the ground. Cam Newton, that's his march to the Heisman, and that's where he started in that ball game. And then, you take the next year, Stevens' worst game of his career. Remember that at Williams-Brice, and he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Auburn was not good, and they somehow come into Williams-Brice. Was it the 14 game that Auburn wasn't really that good either, and Carolina couldn't figure it? There's been a lot of frustrating moments that they finally felt like they had cleared the hurdle last season, but better hope they don't let more of those happen on Saturday, because Carolina needs to go to a bowl game as badly as possible. All right, finally, before we let you run here, I do want to ask you about hoops. Gamecocks fall to Princeton on Friday night. They beat Western Kentucky yesterday. We talked to Frank last week. I know, God, don't read a message board after a Gamecock basketball loss. Fire everybody. Dude, they played 3 games. But, I mean, Wes, I even with the loss, I like the team. I mean, the Stevenson kid, he's not shooting it well right now, but you can tell he can shoot. But overall, I like this basketball team. That loss is not real. I think Princeton's pretty good, but that loss to me is not end all be all for South Carolina. They have an identity. It's just about trying to figure out who they are. I think they got a shot.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, guys. I'm not a basketball expert by any means. Colin does a great job. Yuva does a great job covering them for us, Chris Wellbaum. But I'll tell you what, man, I like these freshmen. I think the thing with this team for Frank and the guys is going to be, and Frank is one of the best at sort of this, like, you steadily tweak, right? Like, let's make this little change. Let's make as the year goes on. And I think the frustration for the fans is, another early season loss is probably the reaction you're seeing right now. But I'm with you, man. There's a lot of nice pieces to this team. They've been missing AJ Wilson, who will be back, the transfer, strong defensive presence. They'll get Keyshawn Bryant back, obviously, and that will help. But I look at the kids. Devin Carter. There's been a lot of talk about him this offseason. The right kid. Taquan Woodley is way further along than a lot of their big men have been in the past as true freshmen, in my opinion. Like when I watched their first game, I was like, wait, who's that 55 kid? Like, he instantly caught my attention. So to me, let's see what this team is going to be as the season progresses, because I'm sure Frank will continue to tweak, and they just got to hope, as we always talk about, avoid any more nights like Princeton and while they're figuring it out, because once they figure it out, this, to me, I'm with you. I'm still very intrigued by this basketball team. And that was a nice win for them on Sunday to bounce back after the Friday loss and get a dub and get back to town.
Yeah. I think they've got a chance. We'll see what they do with it here over the next couple of weeks. Their next basketball game comes up Thursday night against UAB at Colonial Life Arena. Wes, on that note, we'll let you run. It's the Jason Brown interview. I always miss the name. Lunch. What do you call it? Gamecock.
Lunch with Jason Brown. This one was brought to you by Garnet Trust.
Yeah.
Which we need to talk about that at some point as well. It can be found on YouTube, on GamecockCentral.com, pretty much all of our platforms.
You're the man, Wes. Have it. GC Live at 2 today, right?
We'll be there.
You got a busy day, man. Drink a glass of water. See you.
Have a good one, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you. There you go. Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central, GC Live coming up when we're done. So just click right over. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, Perry Orth, Gene Sapakoff. We got some NFL, some hoops to get to as well. So hang tight. And high school, the high school boys. They played big weekend in high school football. Get state championships starting this week. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes. the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about. Stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
103, final hour, Monday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases, MotleyRice.com. It is Power Hour. Remember, Wando Power Equipment has everything that you possibly need. And if you're looking for a gift for dad or your brother or your son or your whoever it is, this holiday season, and they're an outdoorsy type guy like myself. Like, I love when people buy me tools and man stuff. Maybe check out Wando Power Equipment. Head to wandopower.com, and if they don't have it, ask them when they'll get it in. I bet you it'll be sooner than you think. Wando Power Equipment, wandopower.com. All right, Gene Sapakoff ahead in the final segment, thanks to Wes Mitchell, but popping on as he usually does on Mondays is the former quarterback at South Carolina, Perry Orth. Hey, bud.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Well, we're fine. We're used to Mondays like this around here.
It's going to be okay. It's a game.
It's just a game, right?
I've been saying that I say that a lot on this show. Like, I'm a Penn State guy. I'm not sitting here, crying right now because they've lost 4 or 5 and just lost to the team I consider to be the biggest rival for the school. Like, it's okay. Like, breathe. Yeah. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it was a tough one, Perry. I want to start with Jason Brown. Evaluate his performance based on what you saw him do against Florida. What'd you see out of him this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously great in the pocket. He moves well. He's able to find the open receiver. I feel bad for him Saturday. He didn't have a ton of time, and he got his bell rung a couple times. You can tell. Tough kid, bounced back up, and really overall didn't play bad. It's tough playing quarterback when you struggle to run the football, and that I'm sure that was a heavy point of the game plan. And then ultimately, when you don't have a ton of time, it's tough. And man, it was cold out there, and excuse me, a sleepy Missouri crowd as they always have, and it's a tough place to play QB. But I thought he handled the moment well, and man, he rallied a great little comeback. I wish we could have had the ball one more time.
Yeah, I mean, 31-28, of course, the final score there, as you mentioned, Perry, they did hang a couple of touchdowns on the board in the fourth quarter. Shane did mention yesterday that it was a collective effort and everything that went wrong on the offensive side. Well, all across the board. Defensively, they couldn't stop the run, but on the offensive side, he didn't go into each individual details, but basically said all of us had a hand in this. They need to coach better, they need to play better, and things like that. And Jason has actually, already discussed publicly a couple of things he thinks he needs to do a little bit better. One of them kind of stepping up into the pocket. Can you kind of walk us through maybe a couple of moments where that would have maybe allowed him to do something differently than what the result was?
Well, yeah, he had that marvelous play against Florida where he spun left and evaded that tackle and threw a bomb to Josh Vann. And I think he just went to the well one too many times on Saturday. It felt like any time the pocket broke down, he was doing, the spin out to the left, which is great. Typically, and as he knows, this is not something that he wouldn't already know. Typically, the spin will happen when somebody's attacking that front leg or that front shoulder, and you can spin out. But when they're kind of going back and around you, that's when you want to climb up in the pocket. I will say, man, I mean, he's not a young QB. He's inexperienced at this level, and he'll get better the more experience as he plays more. And I like what I see out of Jason. He's obviously a gamer. Plays hard, for the most part, took care of the ball, I guess. I know there are a couple holding calls that kind of helped the Missouri guys get in the way of interceptions. Without that, I doubt that those balls are intercepted. But yeah, overall, not a bad performance at all. Again, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. Quarterback's an interesting position because you get blamed when you win, or you get the credit when you win and blamed when you lose, but you're the most dependent player on the field. I mean, defense doesn't stop the run. You don't run the ball, and offensive line doesn't block. It's tough to be super effective at QB. And I thought for the circumstances that he dealt with, he did pretty doggone good, and very proud of him.
Perry Orth, 108 here on this Monday afternoon. Perry, from the standpoint of not really holding up front, not being able to block a pretty consistent Missouri pass rush, they seemingly were just, guns blazing, going right at the quarterback, Jason Brown, throughout the ball game. It was pressure, I guess is what I'm getting at here. What were you thinking? What were you seeing in those moments? What maybe could South Carolina have done to prevent some of that? I say that I kind of throw out my own observation here, and I'd like you to comment on it. I learned from you like everybody else does. I don't recall seeing any screens. Generally, that's something you see in spots like that.
Yeah, I mean, that anything like that to help slow the pass rush down is going to help. Any kind of draws or anything like that typically helps, or roll in the pocket just so you're not a sitting duck back there. And then I just saw that Missouri really kind of, they played with a little pep in their step. They played with a sense of urgency, and defensively, it looked as if they said to themselves pregame, man, if we can take care of the run, force them into obvious passing downs, and man, pin your ears back and go get them. It almost looked like that was what their coaches were telling them all week, because they did exactly that. And I actually, after watching the game, the first thing I thought of was, man, what am I going to talk about this week? And you got to give Missouri credit. I mean, they're not the most elite bunch, but they had a game plan and they stuck to it. You talk about what they did offensively. I mean, that cat at running back they got, I mean, you got to have two guys to bring him down. I mean, that's like tackling a brick wall. And that was a huge key to their success. And they stuck to what they wanted to do and rode with it. Just kind of while I'm thinking about it now, just kind of the play that I really felt like the game really flipped, man. We're up 7 and driving, and I don't know if it was a fumbled handoff or, it was kind of cold and somebody punched the ball out, but that fumble that we had where they got the ball and then went down and scored, it just seemed to turn the momentum. For us to have gone up maybe 10 or 14 nothing there, geez, it would have been a great way to jump on them early and kind of just keep that confidence at a low, but kind of let them back into the game, and that obviously came back to hurt us.
That's a great point, Perry. That was pretty frustrating, I think, because you go up by 2 scores there. The game's not over, but obviously you're gonna change a lot of, or at least a little bit of what Missouri's going to attempt to do. I alongside that, I kind of circled another moment in my notes, which was the last drive for South Carolina before the end of the half. They have the football with about 1 minute, 20 seconds or 30 seconds to go. And basically you're thinking, okay, well, if they don't score here at minimum, the clock's going to run itself out. You'll go into halftime tied. And that did not happen. They kept going backwards. They had a penalty. They had some backwards plays. Jason got sacked. I think somebody else, maybe Marshawn Lloyd, got stuffed for a 4 or 5 yard loss. And they ended up having to punt the ball. Missouri moves it down the field, and by the skin of their teeth, they get a field goal through there as the clock expires with no timeouts left. But that was just a huge play. I mean, there was a lot of action going on. There was momentum. The ball goes through the uprights, and Missouri takes the lead going into halftime there. What do you think could have been better for South Carolina to at least hold on to the ball and prevent Mizzou from gaining that momentum in the last, minute of the half or so?
Yeah, do I give you the obvious answer? I mean, in a perfect world, we'd love to score and make it 21-14 and give them the ball back with 30 seconds left. I mean,
right.
I tell you, the last few minutes of a half and the first few minutes are so important. They really are for momentum and direction of the game. Missouri, I can't remember if they got the ball, went out and scored on their first possession of the second half, but you get the ball down at the end of the half. And I mean, we were probably half a yard from giving up a touchdown there, and they executed that end of the half special teams perfectly and made that field goal. And you just sit there and you think after it happens in a pretty tight ball game, you're like, man, that 3 points is going to come back to get us, and sure enough, it did. You look at other plays that we wish we could have avoided. Was we tried that like fake sweep or fake handoff play action and left that backside guy unblocked, and he came back and he crushed Jason Brown, and obviously the scoop and score was a big hurt. And it's hard to sit there and quarterback's got to hang on to the football, but when it's 35 degrees and the ball's already slick as it is and you get crushed from the backside, it's tough. And I'm not sure if that was just somebody that we had unaccounted for. But nonetheless, they put pressure on us, man. I tell you, after that turnover again, I hate to circle back to it. They really put their foot on the gas. And heck, Missouri gave us a chance. I mean, it was 31-14 with, the halfway of the fourth quarter left, and they gave us one. They dropped the fumble and gave us some life to come back. And in those close games, the margin for error is so thin, and unfortunately, we weren't on the victorious end of it. It's tough to win games on the road. I don't care if you're in the ACC, SEC, or you're in the Sun Belt. You're playing at a park you're not familiar with, and guys, it'd been in the 60s and 70s all week up here in Columbia, and then you got game day and it's 35 degrees. I mean, that plays into a factor too. And I know I sound like I'm making excuses for the guys, but Missouri, they just call it for what it is. They played better, and like Coach Beamer said, said the right things. They coached better, they played better, they did all the things better, and that's why they won the ball game. But don't lose sight. We played really well at home, and with Bo Nix out Saturday, I mean, everything that we want to do is still right out in front of us. So now's not the time to pitch in the tent and quit. Now's the time to bear down the hatches and let's get after it.
If Bo Nix is out, their starting kicker is out with a torn MCL. I mean, Auburn's a little wounded coming into the game, in addition to the fact they've lost 2 games in a row. Carolina ended a losing streak against the Tigers last year, and so now they're looking to go back-to-back against Auburn, Perry, and former offensive coordinator Mike Bobo. In addition to all that, we just talked to Wes about this, the Auburn quarterback this week is TJ Finley, who was the quarterback at LSU last year in a backup role, and he ran up and down the field against South Carolina. So there's some strange familiarity with Auburn in this matchup leading into it. And you know what, Perry, to your point, I know we got to let you run here in a couple of minutes, but at the end of the day, and Darren said this at the top of the show, this was ugly. We've seen a lot of ugly this year from Carolina. Guess what? They're still 5-5, and they've won every game but one at home, and their final 2 games are under the lights against Auburn and Clemson at home. There are still a ton of goals that they can hit out there and grab incredible momentum going into the offseason. And so I hope that fans will recognize that the next 2 weeks should be a lot of fun in Williams-Brice Stadium, and their help, it could be even more.
Yeah, we need to get fans out there. Same thing I told you a couple weeks ago. When everybody had packed in the tent and we're playing Florida, man, if you got a ticket, go to the game. If you're not going to the game and you got a ticket, sell it or give it to somebody. We need to pack Williams-Brice out and give our guys and our coaches and the team the well-deserved crowd that they've earned the right to have. You know, we're 5-5. A lot of experts out there had us win 3 ball games this year, and we've got 2 left to go. 2 games, by the way, which we can win. We obviously know that we play well at home, and you take Bo Nix out of the lineup at Auburn, and you know, are they going to be able to score points like they normally do? I don't know. It's a completely different dynamic. You know, I know the quarterback played against us last year. It's a different defense. He's in a different scheme. We're at home. Again, a night game. The place should be electric, and let's go out there and give Auburn a difficult time to communicate on offense, hell, and on defense, and give our guys every right and opportunity for them to win the game. And that noise, I'm telling you, I've played it. You know, I think I started 7 or 8 road games in my time, and it disrupts offenses. It disrupts communication when you're trying to check in and out of plays, and you know, 4 guys may be on the same page, but that fifth offensive lineman, if he slides left because he heard something different or didn't hear, and it opens a gap, and the guy comes free and sacks the quarterback, he fumbles it, we get the football. I mean, that goes in, you know, that goes on the crowd as well. And we need to be there to support Coach Beamer and what he's building and all of that. So I expect us to play really well. I actually think that we'll win the ball game Saturday. Auburn's a giant question mark after kind of losing the way they did, and their defense ain't electric either. And then you lose your starting quarterback, and that's going to pull the wind out of your sails too. So we're getting Auburn at the right time, man. We win that ball game, it carries right into you know, the Palmetto Classic or whatever the heck we call it. You get Clemson at home too, and their offense sucks. And so we can get out there and win a couple ball games. I mean, you go out there and you win the next 2 and finish 7-5 with a chance to go 8-5. I mean, holy smokes, what a great first year. So, you know, let's not throw in the towel yet. We got a couple more ball games for these guys to go out and fight. So let's show up and be ready for Auburn.
Kind of just quick hitter here, Perry, on what you just said, kind of funneling this question out of that. I mean, you talked to so many of your former teammates and not just former teammates, but so many lettermen who you've associated yourself with over the years, guys that played before you, guys that have played after you, guys that played with you. You know, when y'all, I'm not asking you to tell me word for word what your private conversations are, but when you do talk in private, is that a lot of the general message amongst the alumni? Like, man, we need people in this ballpark watching Shane Beamer and this team, whether they're good, bad, whatever, it's not going to get better without them. Like, what type of conversations do y'all have that you feel like fans need to hear?
Well, the one residing discussion that we all have is we love what Coach Beamer is building. We love his passion for the school. We love his enthusiasm for our program, and we love all the energy that's coming with it. We know he's building this program in the right direction. The other thing we talk about is how much we love the university ourselves and how much we want the kids that are there now to have the same experiences that we had, playing in front of 85,000 people in a bonkers Williams-Brice. I mean, guys, you've been there for the big games. I mean, there is no place in the country like Williams-Brice when the Gamecocks are playing great football. And it makes for a special, special environment. And we need to be there to support these guys because it makes a difference. And even if it doesn't make a difference from play to play, it makes a difference in the energy that these kids bring and play with throughout the game. And we need to be there and support them. If you are a sore loser and upset that we've lost 5 games, give your tickets away to somebody who wants to be there. Our lettermen need it. Our players need it. The recruits coming to the game want to see it. It all goes hand in hand. It's kind of the same old analogy. It's like, why would you boo players on our team knowing we've got 150 recruits in the end zone section sitting there trying to make a college decision and we're booing our players? Yeah. Now, why in the hell would I want to go to a school where if I don't play well one game, I'm going to get booed? I mean, it's not what you do. We need to be there and have Williams-Brice rocking for all those reasons. And I think we will. We got a great fan base. Coach Beamer knows that. And if I can help promote packing Williams-Brice out along with our staff and our players, then I'm going to do all I can.
I think it's very well said, Perry. I know you're a little bit under the weather. We hope you feel better, my friend. And I hope that next Monday we're talking about a bowl-eligible win for South Carolina to get them in to the postseason. Can't wait, man. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.
Appreciate it, guys, and go Gamecocks as always.
There you go. Perry Orth, former quarterback at South Carolina, and there's his pitch. And so we'll see what it looks like coming up on Saturday. We're going to talk a lot about this game throughout the week because behind the scenes, there, I've hinted at it. There's some extra juices flowing, Perry. Some personal grudges probably that want to be ironed out Saturday night, and we'll see if they are in whose favor in that football game. All right, the Share Healthcare chat lines are open, and you can pop in and be a part of our conversation here. Some quick notes and hoops or some quick scores, some in-state scores from the weekend. If you happen to miss any of that, going back to Friday, I think we all know that the women's basketball team in the new poll just came out. They're still number one. They have more votes than they did last week. They went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and beat South Dakota 72-41. Next up, Clemson on Wednesday night at Colonial Life Arena. It's on the SEC Network, and I believe on the SEC Network Plus as well. The Citadel did beat Morris College on Friday, so they're 2-0 to start the season. They've got PC tonight at 7 o'clock up in Clinton. Charleston Southern lost to Ole Miss on Friday night, 93-68. They'll play Wednesday at Wake Forest, Darren. They've got a tough start to the year. Headed to
did you see the shirt Steve Forbes was rocking the other night for Wake Forest?
I don't think so.
It was wild. It matched the uniforms in a sense. They were wearing some gray, mostly gray, with the black and the yellow. It's Wake Forest. Just this wild, not Hawaiian, almost jungle-looking shirt pattern thing that, I don't know, just coming out there with some flair. But that Forbes is going to bring that. He's going to have Wake Forest playing well here before too long.
I like Steve Forbes. He formerly at East Tennessee State, and BJ Mackey was up there. I've talked to BJ about him before. BJ's like, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to Google that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Google it.
It's impressive. I promise you don't own a shirt like he was rocking on the sidelines like 2 nights ago. No.
More than likely I don't. You know what else is impressive? College of Charleston played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and won all 3 games for South Carolina State, Lipscomb, and Loyola. Their next one is tomorrow night at TD Arena on the CBS Sports Network because it's the North Carolina Tar Heels coming to town. And there's going to be a lot of stars and celebrities out for that one as well. I can't wait to watch it. 8:30 tomorrow night on the CBS Sports Network between the Cougars and the Heels downtown. It is sold out, so if you've got a ticket, good for you. If they could pull an upset there, watch out. Because next Monday, they're at Oklahoma State taking on Mike Boynton and the Cowboys. So the next 2 are going to be really, really difficult. And, Oklahoma State, we just don't know who they're going to be because they're still a little devastated by that ridiculous NCAA decision that came down about a week or so ago. But anyways, it starts tomorrow night at 8:30 if you're going to watch it on the CBS Sports Network. We know about the Gamecocks. They beat Western Kentucky yesterday after falling to Princeton on Friday night. UAB comes up on Thursday on the SEC Network Plus from Colonial Life Arena at 7 o'clock. And then Clemson took down Wofford Friday night tonight. They'll host Bryant before hitting the road for Temple in the 2021 Shriners Classic here in Charleston, of course. And then Friday, they've got St. Bonaventure or Boise State coming up on Friday. So that gets going later on this week. Looking forward to that. All right, Darren, as I just continue to lose my breath here, I do want to make sure it's playoff season. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge all of the high school teams that won this past weekend. If you're one of these teams, please rise. Hammond whipped Porter Goud. They're in the state championship against Trinity Collegiate, who took down Augusta Christian 59-33. And they'll play at CSU Friday night at 7 o'clock. So congratulations, Hammond, going for another state championship without Eric Kimry this time, of course, at the 3A level. In Skeeza, at the 2A level in Skeeza, Williamsburg Academy beat Buford Academy. Hilton Head Christian took down PD. So Hilton Head and Williamsburg will play on Saturday at 5 o'clock out there at Charleston Southern. So good luck to both those teams. Williamsburg Academy proudly representing Kingstree, South Carolina. Thomas Hayward and Lee Academy win at the 1A level, knocking out Thomas Sumter and St. John's Christian. So they're going to play at noon on Saturday at Charleston Southern. Thomas Hayward and Robert E. Lee Academy from Bishopville. Congratulations to them. And then the 8-man boys in Skeeza football, Andrew Jackson beat Clarendon Hall. Holly Hill Academy beat Patrick Henry. So Holly Hill and Andrew Jackson will play on Friday evening as well. And then at the high school level, Class A, Southside and Calhoun County are playing. Calhoun County beat McBee. Southside Christian beat C.A. Johnson. So they got a game Friday night. Ridge Springs and Lamar will go on Friday night after winning their second-round games. C.E. Murray beat Branchville, and Well Branch beat Lakeview. So they'll play on Friday night. And then how about old Hollywood, South Carolina? Baptist Hill will welcome Bamberg to town. That's going to be a fun one on Friday evening up there in the original and beautiful Hollywood. Bamberg beat Carver's Bay, the home of the Gethers family, and Baptist Hill beat Green Sea Floyd's 50-33. At the AA level, Abbeville wins over Saluda. Gray Collegiate beats Crescent. They're going to play Friday night in the third round. Christchurch and Newberry have advanced after defeating Chesterfield for Newberry. Christchurch beat St. Joe's. Silver Bluff beat Central. Sherraw beat Timberland. Silver Bluff and Sherraw. That's going to be a darn good one up there in Sherraw, South Carolina on Friday night. And then how about the Fighting Iron Horses and Eric Bendig? Philip Simmons took down Wade Hampton 15-14. Barnwell beat Woodland. Barnwell will come to Philip Simmons on Friday night at 7:30 out there on Clements Ferry Road on Daniel Island. If you can go and you're in the Low Country, man, go check it out. That is so cool. That's going to be an incredibly difficult game for Philip Simmons, but you know what? It's probably going to be pretty difficult for Barnwell as well. They've rallied the troops out there. So congratulations to Philip Simmons for advancing to the third round. Darren, that would be a big win if they could take down Barnwell, man.
I mean, at this point, right? It's just icing on the cake at this point. I mean, the fact they're still alive, what he's done in what seems like no time at all to get Philip Simmons not competitive, but in position to make a deep run. He's done a hell of a job out there.
Unbelievable. I mean, started it from scratch, man.
Mm-hmm.
These cats have come up and stuck with it. That's Bendig, if you're watching, congratulations, man. What a great job. Bob Hayes is proud of you, buddy. That's really cool. Chester and Powdersville will play on Friday night. Chester beat Chapman at the 3A level. Powdersville beat Wren. That's an upset there. So Powdersville is going to host Chester. Daniel hosts Clinton coming up on Friday. Daniel took down Woodruff. Clinton beat Lower Richland. Brooklyn Casey knocked out Hanahan by 1 point, 28-27. The Hawks season comes to an end, but it was a good one. Brooklyn Casey advances to take on Camden. They'll host Camden after Camden knocked out Ainer this weekend, 13-0. And Dillon beat Crestwood, and that gets them a playoff date hosting Oceanside Collegiate Academy. Joe Call, get the boys on the road. It's going to be a hostile environment up there in Dillon on Friday night. Any of those that have never been to Dillon, if you're watching or listening to this show, I wish you the best of luck. That is a tough place to play. They're proud of their football. That's going to be, Darren, that's going to be a good game.
It is.
In Dillon.
The last time I saw Oceanside, they destroyed Hanahan, and it wasn't because Hanahan doesn't have a couple of kids. I mean, they do. They got a couple of kids there. They got specifically 2 running backs. Oceanside's offensive line has played together since the school started. It's not just the fact that they've consistently been next to each other. They're also dudes, right? Ashley just decommitted from Charlotte, so you're going to have 3 at least, if not 4 or 5 Division I guys on that offensive line. They're going to be up for this game. That line is going to be exploding off the ball. And look for some of those guys to maybe play on the defensive side as well, if needed, against Dillon.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And there's a lot of kids on that OCA side who are new to towns. I know a lot of the kids who they are at Oceanside Collegiate who've never been to Dillon. Joe Call has, and KC Crosby has, and Willie Alford has. And a lot of those guys on that staff know this state, grown up in this state. They know what they're walking into up there. They'll be prepared. That's going to be a really good game for OCA. At the 4A level, Greenville, we didn't get to this with Perry. The AC Flora State Championship run has ended after they got knocked out Friday night against Greenville. Greenville advances to take on Irmo on Friday evening, who beat Westside. South Point beat Lawrence. Greenwood beat Catawba Ridge. So South Point and Greenwood will play in Greenwood, the home of who? DJ Swearinger on Friday night. And then in the south, or the lower state, Myrtle Beach and Beaufort will play on Friday evening. Myrtle Beach beat Aiken. Beaufort beat North Augusta. And West Florence will head to Hartsville. Hartsville knocked out North Myrtle. And West Florence knocked out South Aiken. And then finally at the 5A level, we'll hit a break after these guys here. Ridgeview beats Hillcrest 47-41 on Friday night. They'll next take a trip to Spartanburg. Might as well just stayed in the upstate. Spartanburg beat Spring Valley. So Ridgeview and Spartanburg will play Friday evening. Gaffney beat TL Hanna, the home of radio. Of course, has passed away now, but Gaffney wins the game. The Indians advance. They get Northwestern. Woo, buddy. Gaffney and Northwestern on Friday night is going to be a lot of fun. Go Northwestern and Paige Wofford. Go win the state championship, Paige. Dutch Fork pounded Cane Bay. Unfortunately, having to put that politely, 56-0. They've got Sumter this week. Sumter beat Stratford 28-7. Darren, I think that game is in Sumter. It is in Sumter. Because both of them won their region, and if the two teams have the same region finish, the bracket determines the home team, and the bracket predetermined the Sumter region. So I think Sumter hosts Dutch Fork.
That would be interesting.
Friday night.
Wow. Either way, good luck, Sumter.
Wow.
Wherever that game is. I mean, if Dutch Fork is traveling.
Yeah, that's
good luck, Sumter.
Well, we know this one. We know where this one's going to be. Fort Dorchester will host Lexington on Friday night. Lexington beat Goose Creek. Fort Dorchester beat Chapin 44-21. So the Patriots have a big one coming up Friday evening, 7:30. If you want to get out there and watch it, Fort Dorchester and Lexington. The Wildcats and the Patriots from North Charleston. Whew. All right, I'm out of breath. But, look, it's that time of year, man. These kids work hard. We want to make sure that we acknowledge every single team that wins and keeps advancing. And we'll talk to David Shelton later on in the week. Good luck to all of the Skeeza teams playing for the state championship this week at Charleston Southern. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Congratulations. Yep. Time for our final timeout. When we return, Gene Sapakoff, Post and Courier, right here on the JB and Goldwater Show. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle, and we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
Well, you're welcome, Patrick. See Patrick Davis next Friday, the night before Clemson in South Carolina in Columbia, his annual Toys for Tots show. It's always a great event to help those out in need this time of year. So those that will be attending, I look forward to seeing you there. If you don't know anything about it, head to patrickdavismusic.com for what tickets are left. There's not many, if any. Actually, I haven't even checked, so we'll do that. Speaking of tickets, if you want to go watch some great hoops this week, you need to head to espnevents.com/Charleston-Classic. Because St. Bonnie and Boise State will kick off this year's Shriners Children's Charleston Classic down at TD Arena. Clemson and Temple will play at 4 on Thursday. Marquette and Ole Miss, the 7 o'clock tip Thursday evening. Elon and West Virginia is the nightcap at 9 o'clock. Those are the 4, and then the rest of the bracket will figure itself out based on those results. I wonder if Gene Sapakoff will be checking in downtown. I bet he will be for the North Carolina College of Charleston game. It's an interesting week of hoops down there off of Calhoun. What's up, Gene?
There's so many good games for the whole week. And quick trivia question. You guys know who the best player ever to play at St. Bonaventure is, don't you?
Is it St. Bonaventure himself?
No, that's close. He was a walk-on, but no, the great Bob Lanier, NBA center, and
wow.
What a tough guy to guard that was for the likes of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Dave Cowens and all the other good centers at the time in the NBA.
That's a nice little Monday.
Bonaventure, a portion of our program today.
I'll say this: if you're going to watch him play, do it in Charleston and not try and get to St. Bonaventure. It's not easy to get to St. Bonaventure.
No, and I'm sure they're going to be glad to be here and as a nationally ranked team.
The Bonnies. Yeah, off to a good start this year. Gene, we'll get to, nobody cares about football anymore. It's basketball season. We'll get to that in a minute. But I love this event. I've been to it many times. Those guys have taken care of me time and time again down there. It's neat. You never know who you're going to see in the upstairs in the little VIP area. Bobby Crimmins or whoever's kind of moseying around. They get great teams every year. It's well run. I mean, this is another neat sporting event that has come not only come to Charleston, but has stuck around for many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a blast. I mean, anytime I think, especially like you want to see the back-to-back games in the afternoon or in the evening, I just think that's so cool. And it's just such great value for the ticket price, whatever it is. And as you said, there's always some good teams, and you're going to look back in March and say, I saw that team or that player in Charleston. So many examples of the past of that.
Yep. Yeah, and they always include local flavor as well. But the way that works for those that are unaware is you're on a 4-year rotating schedule with that. So they can't have Clemson this year and Clemson next year. Like they have to invite them back in 4 years, which they've done because Tigers are playing there this year. All right. We can get to football now, Gene, if you'd like to do so. Let's start with Clemson. So they beat UConn this weekend. Were you up there? Where were you this weekend? Were you at Clemson?
Yeah, I was at the UConn game mostly because I just wanted to see how Clemson was gonna play that game. But then also there was some interest because Lou Spanos, the UConn coach, lives part of his life in Mount Pleasant with his family. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And he and Dabo Swinney had a great meeting before the game. And that's kind of what I wrote about, but also just trying to project the Tigers forward into this big game with Wake Forest, huge ACC implications, mostly for the Deacons. And then of course, the next week they play in Columbia, South Carolina.
So how do you project them after seeing them dominate UConn?
Well, I went to the game and I came away knowing less about Clemson, than when I arrived. And that's because, they held some guys out and it was not a good performance. It was sloppy on offense. The defense made some good plays, but, the special teams allowed an opening kickoff touchdown and made some mistakes themselves. And I'm not sure that DJ Uiagalelei is healthy or that he should have even played in that game, but because Tyson Pumachan isn't healthy, I guess the coaches figured that we're not going to let Hunter Helms run this game. Not so much, I don't think, because they didn't have confidence that they could beat UConn solidly with Hunter Helms, who's a pretty good player for a walk-on, but just because I thought they think the offense needs to have as much rhythm as possible going forward, and they're right about that because they made a little progress against Florida State, a little progress against Louisville, and then kind of went a little bit backward against UConn.
It was some of the harshest words from Dabo Swinney about DJ Uiagalelei after the game. He was below 50% for the 4th or 5th time this year. Some of the words used by Dabo were overtly harsh and critical, and there's clear, I don't know, maybe momentum of this competition. If Pumachan is actually healthy, that competition could ramp up this week. What do you take from Dabo publicly being a little bit more forceful in his comments?
You're right, and that's where this program is, at least on offense right now, because as much as I like Tyson Pumachan and the story of the Pumachan family, his brother was the starting quarterback at UConn and he almost pulled off a win over Wyoming with him as the quarterback, and they were ahead of Vanderbilt before he got injured and knocked out for the season. But I'm telling you, there's no quarterback on the Clemson roster except DJ Uiagalelei that can win consistently against FBS competition. I'll just say that. And that's not a knock on the guys on the roster. That's a knock on the coaching staff that didn't get them some sort of guy in the transfer portal that could help this team out. As far as Dabo's criticism, it's tough. Clemson had 30 incomplete passes against a UConn team that most people think is the worst or second or third worst in all of FBS out of 130 teams. So that's just not good going into a game against Wake Forest, even though Wake Forest has the 106th rated defense right now in the country, but that's not going to work too well against a better team. So we'll see if that offense runs better with Will Shipley and Kobe Pace and whatever else they can get out of the injured list, but it's been a struggle all year, and will continue to be so for the Clemson Tigers on offense.
I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, there's got to be some type of silver lining here, though, right? I mean, they have scored 104 points in their last 3 games. That's the best stretch they've put together all year. FSU, Louisville, and UConn included. I know a lot of it's been ugly, but 104 points. That's 30 some odd points a game. Gene, I mean, isn't there something to at least hang their hat on as they move into this final stretch with Wake in South Carolina?
Yeah, the best thing that happened against UConn, and I'm completely serious about that, is that their starting offensive lineman got some rest. And that is a huge thing, because we used to talk about Clemson playing almost 100 or over 100 players a game frequently during this 6-year playoff run that they had starting in 2015 and ending in 2020. It was absolutely not uncommon to go 85, 90 guys deep in the roster. In the Louisville game, just 9 days ago or whatever, they played 5 offensive linemen the entire game because they just have nobody else. So they got those guys a lot of rest on Saturday. I think that should help them against Wake Forest.
All right. Speaking of which, Wake has not scored less than 35 points in any game this year, and that was back in week 3 against Florida State. They won it 35-14. They scored 45 against 16th ranked NC State this past weekend. They're scoring at home. They're scoring on the road. They just score points. And Sam Hartman, formerly of Oceanside Collegiate Academy under Coach Courier in Mount Pleasant, is the leader of that group of guys that keeps getting in the end zone. So, but I don't know. I mean, Gene, unless there's something out there that I don't know, which generally there is. I don't think they've seen a defense like Clemson's to this point. So is it realistic for them to score 40-plus points this week? I don't know, but isn't it at least a reasonable expectation that Clemson is going to have to score some type of points, not just 15, 20 or so like they were doing prior to this little stretch?
Yeah, I always say you could have a higher scoring game than you think without the offense is necessarily playing real well, either because there's short fields involved, there's other turnovers and special teams play. But generally speaking, if you look at this game, you would figure that, yeah, it's the best offense, Clemson's seen in a while, no doubt about it, and the best defense Wake's seen. The thing is, both of those guys are struggling on the other side. As I said, Wake Forest's defense is not conference championship caliber, let alone college football playoff contender caliber. They are not quite half a team, but they are close to it. That's not a good defense at all. And they haven't played a very tough schedule and yet have had trouble stopping people. So it's going to be kind of fascinating to see the strategy too, how it unfolds here. I have lots of confidence that Sam Hartman will play a good game, even against the biggest, most nastiest crowd he's had to face, probably, definitely this season, and with so much on the line, that's a lot of pressure on Wake. Even they lose to Clemson, I still think they could win at Boston College and seal the deal in the Atlantic Division. But yeah, there's so many subplots in this game, Jamie and Darren.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, again, as Gene pointed out, Wake wins. They're in the ACC championship game against, I guess Pittsburgh is more than likely going to get there, 5-1. What type of game would that be? Wake and Pitt in the ACC title game, Gene. In the eyes of the country, looking at this game from the outside in, I mean, it doesn't have your quote unquote notables, your Clemsons, your Florida States, your Miamis, your Virginia Techs, if you want to throw them in there. Wake and Pittsburgh are not household names in college football. If they do make it to the ACC title game, how does the rest of the country view that?
Probably with a yawn, but if you look at it from the ACC perspective, on the one hand, it's disappointing that the winner of that game has no shot at the college football playoff. If you'd have said that going into the season, you'd be surprised. And remember, last year, just a year ago, both teams in the ACC championship game get to the playoff. That just seems mind-boggling. Of course, it's the Notre Dame asterisk there. But I think, though, just for the entertainment value, a Wake Pitt game, as odd as it sounds, would be very entertaining. I think Sam Hartman and Kenny Pickett are just terrific quarterbacks. They both struggle on defense. It will be high scoring, and there's a low country connection In fact, just a
And
East
both of them.
Cooper connection to both sides with, as you said, Jamie Sam Hartman played at Oceanside Academy for Chad Greer, and Pittsburgh happens to have the two Vardzell brothers who played at Wando High School. One of them's, a redshirting freshman, but John Vardzell gets on the field some. So that's kind of cool.
It'd be oddly like the best case, most fitting scenario for the ACC because it's been the tightest league in the country this year, just in terms of each game. And it'd be a show. I mean, it'd be a tight game that'd be tons of points, and it'd be a show. I mean, I think it's a best case scenario for the ACC because it doesn't matter who wins; they're not going anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, but an ACC championship would mean a hell of a lot in Winston-Salem or in downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, the winning team there, it's just amazing the kind of joy that would come forth for that program, because I don't know if Clemson, Miami, Florida State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina get good. Who knows when either Wake or Pitt will have another shot at an ACC championship.
It's amazing to me that Dave Clawson still there. Still at Wake Forest. Nobody's hired him yet. It's that's wild. Yeah, there's some Gene. I wish we had all. I really wish we had all day with you. You're so much fun to talk college football with. First of all, there's so many fascinating storylines that are floating around out there. I mentioned to Darren earlier. I don't know if there's any league out there right now, or any division, I should say, in college football. There isn't more intriguing than what's happening in the Big Ten East with Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan. But all that being said, one of the things that we have not mentioned today is what on God's green earth is happening in Austin, Texas. I mean, like, you look at Florida and Gainesville, and you look in Austin, Texas, and everybody's going, dude, I don't get it. I don't get it. Oklahoma loses. I think it's fair to say that two Power 5 leagues have probably no chance at the playoff. That's the ACC and the Big 12 now. Gene, what's worse right now? Steve Sarkisian's first year in Austin, now with a loss against the Jayhawks, or Dan Mullen's fourth year in Gainesville, where they're really out of whack?
Well, we know that Dan Mullen can coach and has done wonderful things in Starkville, Mississippi, and hey, he beat Georgia and has been in an SEC championship game with the Florida Gators. But I think that the Texas thing is kind of puzzling. I think there were lots of problems there that Coach Sarkisian inherited, and there's still some more. That's a tough place to coach. There is so much meddling. But I tweeted this out, taking a picture off the phone. But it was stunning to me that as Kansas is lining up to go for a 2-point conversion to pull one of, if not the biggest upsets in college football this year, there are no fans. I mean, no fans in those end zone seats right near the end zone. Did they leave? What the heck happened? Did the band vacate that area? You cannot have that. I mean, even any underdog team driving on the road in a Power 5 conference game would find some way to pay money to have no fans in the end zone as they were trying to execute a game-winning 2-point conversion. It was ridiculous.
It was, to your point, the largest technical upset of the year to this point at 31-point favorites. Yes.
Oh, it was 31?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Yeah, I did not see that. All right, Gene. Now to Columbia. Columbia, Missouri, that is, where Carolina has left something up there. I'm not sure what, but they're 5-5. They're coming home. When I say this, you kind of chuckle, but I mean, who shouldn't have expected this, right? I mean, we don't know who Carolina is, but they do have Auburn and Clemson coming in at night the next couple of weeks, so there's still a chance to go bowling. Gene, just in summary here, over the last couple of weeks, what they did against the Gators, and now dropping this ball game against Missouri, and now coming home. Mike Bobo comes to town, and then you got Clemson. I mean, storylines galore. Where are we with South Carolina football?
Yeah, it was interesting to see this collective Gamecock nation on social media when Samford scored more points than any FCS team has ever scored against an SEC team before the Gamecocks kicked off. And it was not completely right there invalidating what the Gamecocks did against Florida, but it was really a dose of perspective. And yeah, they fought back because Missouri worked with the Gamecocks to help make that game close at the end, but that was really disappointing. I think there's still a lot of good things they can take from that Florida game and that they will make use of. And I think the team is still around this coaching staff and has their backs, and that there's senior leadership and stuff, but they need to come out and play well against Auburn. They don't necessarily have to win the game, but they cannot lay an egg as they did at Texas A&M and dig any sort of a hole.
I mean, I know that the next two games for South Carolina are winnable. Everybody knows that. Auburn's got their own issues. Bo Nix is out. Their starting kicker is now out. Clemson has their issues. Those are winnable games. The question that I have, Gene, based on where they are now, is South Carolina good enough to win them? Is South Carolina good enough to win them? Not like, I'm not asking the question about can Clemson lose the game, because they can. There's a difference, as we all know. Can Auburn lose the game? Of course they can. Is South Carolina good enough to go out and beat either one of these teams?
Well, the answer in both cases of Auburn and Clemson is probably not and probably not. But should they have been expected to coming into the season, they're just not they don't have nearly as much talent as either Auburn or Clemson does. But what's so frustrating and just so deliciously fascinating here is that it's possible, because if you also had told me in August, Auburn's not going to have their starting quarterback and they're going to be coming off a just disastrous debacle against Mississippi State, and Clemson is going to come into Columbia not ranked, not in the college football playoff talk, not ranked. And you would have said, oh my God, what an opportunity. And that's just what it is. And you kind of want to get one of these, at least one of them, if you're South Carolina, because these sorts of opportunities just don't come around very often. And yet, so typical of Gamecock football, except during the Spurrier era, here you have a situation in which Auburn has a quarterback, Bo Nix, who's had a pretty good season, but was haunted by what happened at Williams-Brice Stadium last year. And he's knocked out of this game. Usually, oh, that's great for the Gamecocks. But in comes TJ Finley, who the week after the Gamecocks upset Auburn last year, plays really well, throws a couple of TD passes, and a 52-24 win over the Gamecocks. And so it probably works to Auburn's advantage.
What should Mike Bobo mean in the middle of all this? Should there be some type of manufactured I don't know what word I'm searching for here, but some type of
motivation.
Manufactured motivation in the locker room to go out and, quote, prove to Mike Bobo, hey, you should have stuck around?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm usually not one for manufactured locker room talk, but I don't think this is. Shane Beamer walks in the offensive meeting this week at some point and says, see this guy? He didn't believe in you guys. He thought this was a way better job, not even close, than this. He couldn't wait to get out that door and move down to, Opelika, Alabama, or Auburn, or wherever the heck he lives, because he didn't believe in you guys. And that's got to mean something, I mean, if you have some pride in yourself. Now, once the bullets start flying and you get a little sweaty and a little sore in the game, maybe not, but that can make you practice harder.
Gene, I totally agree, because, I've got some decent sources that say that's exactly what happened. It had nothing to do with money, which is, I think, what a lot of the fan base thinks, that they didn't offer him enough money. No. That's not the case from at least what my sources have told me. So we'll see. What else is on the desk of Gene Sapakoff this week?
Yeah, kind of a mix of college basketball. I talked to John Kress and Pat Kelsey about their relationship and not really knowing what the answers would be. But let me just tell you that Pat Kelsey, as much as any of the Cougar coaches that have followed John Kress, appreciates John and his tutelage more than any of those guys, or is just as much or more. And that John Kress loves this guy and just thinks he's going to work out tremendously at the College of Charleston. And then, just all the football going to be at Auburn, South Carolina, previewing Clemson in the Charleston Classic basketball. So this is just a great week. It's just so much cool stuff's going on. I don't know what to think.
Such a special week. There's no doubt. Do the Cougs pull the upset tomorrow night against the Tar Heels?
I think there's a shot. I mean, this is Hubert Davis's first road game as Tar Heels head coach. They didn't look real sharp in, the games that they played in Chapel Hill, and the Cougars looked good and are hard to scout because you really don't know how the likes of John Meeks and, Dalton Bolin fit into this lineup and other guys too. So, yeah, I mean, I think they have a decent chance. I'm not going to predict it, but I bet it's going to be a close game.
We'll see. North Carolina 2-0 with wins over Brown and Loyola, Maryland. Cougars 3-0 because they played 3 straight nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Boy, there sure is something to be said about that. Gene works every night. Follow him on Twitter at Sapakoff. Make sure you pick up your post and Courier. Gene, wonderful stuff as always. Next week is Thanksgiving week, and I you know that, but I mentioned that because today is National Clean Out Your Refrigerator Day. Probably a good time to do that. What's the oldest item in your refrigerator?
You probably don't want to open the lid on the guacamole that I have. I don't want to gross out the listeners and the viewers.
Well, get that out of there before you have to put all the leftover turkey in there, okay?
I will sure do that.
Thank you, Gene.
Later.
See you, buddy. There you go. Gene Sapakoff, one of the coolest dudes out there. Gene is sneaky funny when you tee him up and give him a chance. I don't know what the oldest item in my refrigerator is.
But I agree with him. Whatever the oldest item in your fridge is, don't open it.
No.
That is sage advice. Whether it's guacamole, milk, old food, whatever.
Oh.
Don't open it.
Dude, if the oldest item in your refrigerator is milk, you are in huge trouble. You probably have maggots too.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Thanks to Wes Mitchell, Perry Orth, and Gene Sapakoff. We should have started the whole show with that so we could have been laughing from the get-go. I'll check out my fridge. I'll report back tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, we've got Mike Morgan, Keith Allsep, Shane Beamer, PC. Thanks to Darren and all of you. Have a marvelous Monday afternoon at the Dog and Duck. How about some Monday Night Football? Congratulations to the Citadel, too, for knocking off Wofford this weekend in overtime. 45-44. See you tomorrow.